My child, you must stop everything you are doing and listen to this message right now, because the moment you hear what this person finally confessed, you will never see your own life the same way again. I need you to stay until the very end of this story, because something huge, something life-altering, is waiting for you in the final moments of this revelation. Imagine the scene clearly in your mind, a person walking into a crowded room, their hands shaking uncontrollably, their voice trembling with a mixture of terror and relief, and their eyes carrying a truth so heavy that the world around them almost froze in time. That is exactly how this story begins, with an atmosphere so thick you could cut it with a knife, and a confession so raw and unexpected that even the people who knew him best couldn't breathe for a second. Before I tell you exactly what he said, I need you to hold on tight to your focus, because every single second from this point forward is going to tighten the grip around your curiosity and pull you deeper into the mystery. Do not skip this video, just listen, because he said the kind of thing that most people keep buried in the deepest, darkest corners of their hearts for an entire lifetime. He spoke words that expose every single layer of who he truly was, peeling back the mask he had worn for decades to reveal the raw human underneath. What he said is something that rewrites how you will see your own struggles, your own silence, and your own life. With every trembling word he spoke into that silence, the room felt smaller, the air felt thinner, and the truth became more dangerous to ignore. You must stay until the end to fully grasp this. But before we get to the specific words of the confession itself, I want you to understand the crushing weight behind it. This wasn't a random moment of emotional weakness. This was a person who had spent years pretending, hiding, and running from a truth that chased him every single day like a shadow he couldn't shake. Don't skip, because the more he tried to silence this truth, the louder it echoed inside his ribs until it became a scream he could no longer contain. He lived his entire life trying to appear strong, perfect, and composed, wearing a suit of armor that was actually crushing his soul. Yet inside, beneath the smile and the success, he was breaking in ways no one could see, cracking under the pressure of being someone he wasn't. And then, one ordinary day, he realized something profound, a realization that shattered the version of himself he had shown to the world. It was a realization that forced him to confront everything he feared the most, bringing him face to face with the stranger in the mirror. Stay until the end, because what he found out is exactly why his confession was so powerful and why you won't be the same after hearing it. He saw that every experience he had, every loss that broke him, every victory that felt empty, and every mistake he regretted was pointing to one singular thing he never wanted to face. And when he finally gathered the courage to speak, he didn't whisper it or sugarcoat it. He tore himself open with his words, letting the pain bleed out into the open air. Don't skip. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything begins to shift in the story. When he finally confessed, he didn't confess about a crime, a failure, a hidden guilt, or a deep regret. No. He confessed something deeper. Something that shakes a person's core and challenges the very foundation of their existence. He confessed the truth that most humans avoid their entire lives, that the person he was pretending to be was never real. He admitted that he had spent his whole life living for others' expectations, dancing to a melody he didn't hear, instead of living his own truth. And when he said this, the room fell silent, not because his words were loud, but because they were honest, painfully, brutally, terrifyingly honest. Stay until the end, because what he revealed next is the part that will change you and force you to look at your own choices. He said he finally understood that the biggest prison he ever lived in wasn't made of bars or walls. It was his own mind, built from fear, doubt, and the desperate need for approval. To help this message reach others who are also trapped in the prison of their own minds, I ask you to engage with this truth right now. Please type "I am listening" in the comments below to signal that you are present and ready to receive this revelation. By commenting, you help push this story to someone else who needs to hear that they are not alone in their struggle. Do not let this moment pass without making your mark. Simply write "I am listening" and let the algorithm know that truth matters. And in that moment of speaking, he broke out of that prison. His confession wasn't about who he had been in the past. It was about who he finally chose to become in the future, marking the death of the old self and the birth of the new. Don't skip, because the next part will show you the exact moment his entire life flipped upside down. And if you listen closely, it might just flip yours too, unlocking doors you didn't know were closed. Stay with me until the end. And listen closely, because from this moment, every second is about to pull you deeper into the heart of the matter. The air in that room was still trembling when he continued, and what he said next made everyone lean in without even realizing it. His voice was soft, almost breaking under the strain of vulnerability, yet every word felt like it was carving itself into the walls around him. He said he finally understood something most people take an entire lifetime to figure out and often realize too late. He whispered, "I wasn't afraid of the world. I wasn't afraid of failure. I was afraid of myself, of meeting the version of me I was meant to be." And right there, everyone froze, struck by the lightning of his honesty. Don't skip. Stay until the end, because this is where the real shift begins for him and for you. He looked up, and for the first time, you could see a strange mix of fear and freedom dancing in his eyes. He confessed that the truth he hid was never about failure, but about potential. He wasn't running from his past mistakes. He was running from the future he never thought he deserved, terrified of his own light. Don't skip, because he went on to say he had dreams so big they scared him, visions of becoming more, doing more, and living more than he ever dared to admit, but he silenced them, buried them deep, because he believed the lie that he wasn't enough to carry them. And the moment he admitted that, the room didn't judge him, it understood him, because deep inside, every single person has felt the exact same way. Every person has held themselves back, doubting their worth, fearing their own greatness, and choosing safety over destiny. Stay with me until the end, for something huge is coming that will explain how to break this cycle. And then came the moment that changed everything, the pivot point of his existence. He said that every time he felt life pushing him forward, he stepped back into the shadow. Every time an opportunity called his name, he hid behind excuses. Every time his heart said go, his fear whispered not you. And now, standing in the wreckage of his pretense, he finally saw the truth. The world never stopped him. He stopped himself. Don't skip, stay with me, because what he realized next is the part people need to hear but rarely ever confront in their own lives. He said that one decision, just one single choice made in a moment of bravery, can rewrite everything. One moment of absolute honesty can open a life that once felt impossible to reach. One confession can finally break the chains that held you for years, dissolving the illusion of limitation. And that's why he spoke. That is why he stood there trembling but resolute. Not to confess a mistake, but to confess a rebirth, a decision to stop living small. A decision to finally meet the person he was always meant to become, regardless of the cost. Don't skip, stay until the end, because something huge is waiting for you in the next part. And trust me, You are not ready for what comes next as the layers continue to peel away. Listen carefully, because this is the moment where curiosity turns into goosebumps and the story shifts from a simple confession into a spiritual awakening. When he took his next breath, it felt like the entire world paused around him, waiting for the truth to land. His confession wasn't over, in fact. It was only getting deeper, peeling back layers that most of us are too afraid to touch. He said something so unexpected, so quietly powerful, that everyone's heart tightened for a second, realizing he was speaking their own secrets out loud. He told the room that he finally realized that every moment he spent doubting himself, life hadn't left him behind. It had been waiting for him to rise. Every time he hesitated, terrified of making the wrong move, his destiny didn't disappear or move on to someone else. It just stood there watching him patiently, whispering constantly into his soul, "When you're ready, I am here." And then he admitted the part that hits the hardest for anyone who has ever procrastinated on their own happiness. He confessed that he had been living like time was unlimited, acting as if second chances would always come back around. He lived as if his dreams would wait for him forever, sitting on a shelf until he felt comfortable enough to pick them up. But they didn't wait. They were slipping away one by one, fading into the background, and he could feel the loss of them in his bones. That was the moment he knew something had to change, or he would lose himself completely to the void of regret. He said that the scariest truth wasn't that he had wasted years, but that he almost wasted his entire life without ever meeting the real version of himself. Don't skip, stay until the end, because he confessed that he had always believed the strongest people were the ones who never broke. He thought strength meant holding it together, smiling when you want to scream, and carrying the world without buckling. But he finally understood that real strength is choosing to rebuild yourself even after being broken for years. Real strength is looking at the shattered pieces of your identity and deciding that they are worth putting back together. And when he spoke those words, you could hear something shift in the room, a collective exhale of relief. It was hope mixed with a kind of awakening, because he wasn't just talking about himself anymore. He was talking about everyone who ever hid their pain behind a smile, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. He was speaking for everyone who ever walked around feeling invisible, waiting for someone to notice they were drowning. He said he spent so long trying to prove himself to the world, chasing accolades and applause, only to realize the only person he truly needed to face, the only opinion that actually mattered, was the one in the mirror. Don't skip, stay with me, because something huge is coming in the next realization he shared. And then came the turning point, the revelation that changes everything for anyone who feels stuck. He said the moment he stopped seeking permission to be himself, he finally felt alive for the first time in decades. He realized the world never needed a perfect version of him, polished and devoid of cracks. It needed the honest one, the flawed one, the human one who wasn't afraid to bleed. And that's when he confessed the deepest truth of all, the one you need to hear right now. He said that every person is one decision away from a completely different life, waiting just on the other side of fear. One moment of courage away from rewriting their entire story, from the first chapter to the last. One heartbeat away from becoming someone they never thought they could be, if only they would choose it. Before I tell you what he said next, I want you to make that choice right now. Please type "I choose myself" in the comments below to align yourself with this energy of transformation. By writing this, you are declaring to the universe that you are done waiting and ready to rise. Let this comment be the first step in your own confession of strength. Now, listen closely, because he said he had spent years waiting for the right time, the right sign, the right feeling. He was waiting for the stars to align, only to realize the right moment never comes on its own. It doesn't exist until you make it. You create it, you choose it, and you seize it with both hands before it slips away. And for the first time in his life, he chose himself over the expectations of everyone else. He chose to stop hiding in the shadows of his own potential and chose to start living in the light. What he said next will shake you even more because it confronts the lies we tell ourselves every day. Stay with me until the end, because something truly life-changing is on its way in this narrative. From this second onward, every heartbeat pulls you deeper into the reality of his transformation. When he spoke again, his voice carried a kind of clarity that made everyone feel like something massive was coming. He said he finally understood the truth life had been trying to show him for years, a lesson he ignored until now. Nothing changes until you change. The world doesn't shift until you shift your internal axis. He said he spent so much time waiting for someone to save him, someone to guide him, someone to lift him up, only to realize the person he was waiting for was himself. He was his own rescuer. The room felt heavier, quieter, like his honesty had reached into every listener's chest and stirred something that had been sleeping for too long. He confessed that the moment he stopped blaming the world and started looking inward, everything began to shift. Not because life got easier, the obstacles were still there, but because he got stronger. Then he said something that made everyone blink, lean in, breathe slower. He revealed that the greatest confession wasn't the fear he carried or the potential he ran from. It was this: he had been living his entire life without truly showing up for himself. He said he had been present for everyone else, supporting their dreams, encouraging their paths, uplifting their spirits. But he was completely absent when it came to his own dreams, leaving his own soul starving. And that truth hit like a quiet earthquake, because so many people do the exact same thing every day. They give their time to others, pouring from a cup that is slowly running dry, but never give to their own soul. They pour energy outward to please the crowd, but leave themselves empty and hollow inside. He looked up with tears in his eyes and said, "I finally realized that if I don't choose me, no one will." And in that moment, the room felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for the impact of those words. And then came the revelation that ties everything together for you and me. He said that the moment he chose himself, the world didn't change instantly, the problems didn't vanish by magic. But he did, and that internal shift was enough to start everything moving in a new direction. He said that choosing yourself doesn't mean ignoring others or becoming selfish. It means no longer abandoning who you are meant to be for the sake of comfort. Don't skip, stay until the end, because as he spoke, something powerful unfolded in the room. A realization that the confession he made wasn't just about his life anymore. It was a mirror held up to everyone listening, reflecting their own hidden fears. A mirror showing that every person has a version of themselves waiting to rise if they only dare to look. He said that if his story reached even one heart, if it awakened even one sleeping dream, then his pain was worth it. Stay with me, don't skip, because something huge is waiting for you in the next part of this journey. Something that will connect everything he said with everything you have ever felt is waiting for you right now, so stay until the end. When he continued speaking, there was a calmness in his voice that didn't come from being unafraid, but from finally being honest with himself and the world. He said he realized something most people never dare to admit out loud because it hurts too much to acknowledge. That he wasn't struggling because life was unfair or cruel. He was struggling because he had been fighting the wrong battles for years, exhausting his spirit on things that didn't matter. He said he had spent years trying to prove himself to people who never truly saw him, trying to fit into places that never belonged to him, and trying to earn love from hearts that were never meant to hold his. "Don't skip, stay with me." Because then he said the line that made everyone in the room shift in silence, realizing they were guilty of the same crime against their own souls. He whispered, "All this time I was trying to be enough for others without ever asking if I was enough for myself." That one sentence changed everything in the atmosphere because it exposed the root of his pain. He said the confession he carried wasn't about regret for the past, it was about an awakening to the present. He finally understood that the greatest pain in life is not losing someone you love or losing an opportunity. It is losing yourself while trying to keep someone else, slowly erasing your own identity to fit into someone else's picture. Don't skip. Stay until the end, because he explained exactly how he did it and how you might be doing it too. He explained how he kept shrinking himself to keep others comfortable, making himself smaller so they wouldn't feel threatened. He spoke of dimming his light so no one felt overshadowed, and burying his voice so no one felt challenged by his truth. But the moment he realized he deserved to take up space, to breathe deeply without apology, and to dream loudly, everything inside him shifted violently toward freedom. He said he felt something rise in him, like a pulse of strength that had been dormant for decades. He didn't know he had a reminder buried deep in his bones that he was born with a purpose, not to blend in with the background, but to become who he was meant to be. Stay with me, don't skip, because what came next hit everyone like a quiet storm tearing through the room. He revealed that the day he spoke his confession was the day he decided he would no longer live half alive, surviving on scraps of happiness. He chose to reclaim the pieces of himself he had abandoned to please others. He chose to forgive the version of himself that stayed silent when he should have screamed. He chose to rebuild the identity he had allowed the world to shape into something he didn't recognize. And then he said the words that gave every listener goosebumps, words that should be etched into your mind. "I finally realized my life will only change when I stop running from the person I was created to become. Don't skip, stay until the end," because he said that his confession wasn't just a moment in time, it was a doorway he walked through, a doorway into a life where he didn't hide his flaws, didn't shrink his dreams, and didn't apologize for being himself. It was a doorway into purpose, confidence, and truth that he had denied himself for too long. And as he finished speaking, something in the room shifted. People didn't just hear him, they felt him in their own chests. Don't skip, because the next part is where his confession transforms into a message meant directly for you. Stay with me until the end, and listen closely, because from this moment onward, every second is designed to keep you right here. When he began to speak again, there was a fire in his voice, not anger, not fear, but a kind of unshakable clarity. He said he had spent so long searching for answers outside himself, waiting for signs from the universe, waiting for miracles to drop from the sky. But then he realized something powerful, something that made the entire room lean forward to catch every syllable. He said, "The answers I was looking for were waiting inside me the whole time." His words didn't echo emptiness, they sank slowly and deeply into everyone who heard them. He said the biggest shock wasn't the confession he made earlier, but what came after it when the dust settled. For the first time in years he felt free, not because his problems vanished, but because he finally stopped pretending they didn't exist. Don't skip, stay until the end, because he explained that honesty is not just telling the truth, it's allowing yourself to live it every day. He said that owning his truth didn't weaken him as he feared, it strengthened him beyond measure. It made him realize that the greatest transformation in life begins the moment you stop hiding from yourself. And then he said something that gave everyone chills. Nothing changes until you decide you deserve a life that feels like yours. To seal this realization in your own life, I ask you to engage with this energy now. Please type "I deserve a life that is mine" in the comments below. Let this be your declaration that you are done living for others. By typing this, you are taking the first step toward reclaiming your own story. Don't skip. Stay, because something huge is coming in his next revelation. Then came the part where his voice softened, becoming not weaker but more human and relatable. He said he understood now that healing isn't a straight line, growth isn't pretty, and change isn't gentle. But every step forward, even the smallest, most painful one, pulls you closer to the person you were always meant to become. He confessed that the hardest battle he ever fought wasn't with the world or his enemies, it was with his own reflection. And the moment he embraced that truth, everything began to shift in his favor. Stay with me, don't skip, because he ended this part with a line that left everyone in silent awe. Your life doesn't change when you wish for it. It changes when you decide you're done living the old one. His confession wasn't just a story. It was a mirror reflecting your own potent eel back at you. And what he reveals next is the part that connects directly, deeply, and personally to you. Stay until the end, because something massive is waiting in the next part. When he spoke again, there was something different in his tone, not pain, but a strange, powerful quietness. He said he realized something most people never dare to admit, that the life he was living was never truly his. He had been shaped by expectations, molded by opinions, and controlled by fear of judgment. But the moment he confessed the truth, he felt something inside him unlock, a bolt sliding back. Stay with me, for he said, for the first time, I saw who I could become, not who the world told me to be. And those words didn't just hit the room, they awakened it, stirring sleeping giants in the hearts of the listeners. He looked up, and you could see it in his eyes. This wasn't a man breaking down, this was a man rising. He said he finally understood that real transformation doesn't begin when life becomes easy. It begins when you stop running from the parts of yourself you don't want to face. Stay until the end, because he shared how every pain, every failure, and every heartbreak had been preparing him, not punishing him, how every setback was actually shaping him into someone stronger, someone clearer, someone unshakable. And then he said something that made everyone feel the weight of their own hearts. The universe doesn't test you to break you, it tests you to show you who you can be. Stay with me, don't scroll, because something huge is coming that will tie everything together. The moment his confession turned from a story into a revelation for you is happening now. He said that the real reason he confessed wasn't to share his past, but to remind you of your future, that every person alive has a version of themselves they're afraid to meet, the stronger one, the wiser, nay, the braver one. He said, the moment you stop doubting yourself, that version steps forward, and he explained that life changes the moment you stop living in default mode and start living with intention. You must stop merely surviving the days and start becoming the person you see in your dreams, because his confession was never a breakdown, it was a breakthrough. It was a stark reminder that one honest moment can rewrite the rest of your life, and now his confession becomes a message meant directly for your path and your awakening. He said that his confession wasn't a message you just hear, it was a mirror showing that your story is waiting for a turning point and you have the power to create it. He confessed that the final part of his realization wasn't about what he endured, but about what he finally understood. I spent my whole life thinking I needed to find myself, but the truth is, I needed to create myself. He realized that identity isn't discovered like a hidden treasure on a map. It is built step by step, choice by choice, and truth by truth. He revealed something that made every listener freeze for a moment, admitting that the person he wanted to become wasn't waiting somewhere out in the world. That person was waiting inside him, locked behind layers of fear, doubt, and silence, waiting for the permission to breathe. He said, "Everything I thought I lacked was already inside me. I just never gave myself permission to use it." And that truth struck deep because so many live believing they need something outside themselves to rise. He looked ahead as if speaking directly into your soul and said, "Your future isn't waiting for permission. It's waiting for courage. You need to hear this clearly. You are not behind, you are not late, and you have not missed your window of opportunity. You are simply arriving at the version of you that was always meant to lead, and you are arriving exactly when you were supposed to." And then he closed his confession with the most powerful line of all, one that left the room breathless and will echo inside you long after this moment ends. The day you choose yourself is the day your entire life chooses you back, and that is the moment your story truly begins. To ensure you don't miss the next step in this journey of becoming who you were meant to be, please click the subscribe button right now. Join this community of people who are choosing themselves and rewriting their stories. Do not let this moment pass without locking in your connection to this truth. Subscribe now and let your transformation continue.